Jacob Khachatryan is a criminal lawyer who will not promise you the world just to sail you up the river. With his experience and skills, you get a defense attorney that is truly by your side, defending you at every stage of the prosecution, including a jury trial where he's had over a 92% success rate for his clients. Whether it's a DUI, domestic violence, or even something as serious as murder, Jacob is the guy you need by your side. That's Jacob Khachatryan, attorney at law. Call 747-755-5555 for Jacob Khachatryan, criminal defense.
Thank you.
This is Maurice Jones-Drew, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
You're listening to the What's Bruin Show, part of the What's Bruin Show network, with your hosts, Jake Berryfield and Mike Regalado, and occasionally some friends, talking all things UCLA sports. And now, it's time for the What's Bruin Show.
Well, hello, welcome to What's Bruin. I am your host, Jake Merrifield. I'm joined by my good buddy, Mike Regalado of Bruin Report Online. Mikey, how are you doing?
Good, Jake. How you doing, buddy?
Mike Regalado.
It's hot, but it's not as hot as the last 4 stupid days.
And it's only supposed to get cooler, hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And here's the thing that's going to, apparently, it's going to go down 10 degrees every day for the next 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
That's going to ruin my allergy situation.
And apparently I'm going to need a parka at the Rose Bowl on Saturday, which is weird. Hopefully not.
Very bizarre. At least, you know what? If that's what it takes, fine. Because it's not a 100-degree
I'll take it over
noon
scorching
kickoff.
Heat. Yeah, 4:30 p.m. is perfect.
Last 2 years.
10 degrees cooler is perfect.
Yeah. Whoever's scheduled these games, early season games at the Rose Bowl, thank you.
All we need now are people at the Rose Bowl. Hopefully it's not this. It will. I'll be there. You'll be there.
Hey, will the Crickets have...
Nancy will be there.
Heck yeah.
Dave will be there, I think.
Will the Crickets have...
Leo will be there.
UCLA gear on? Because that'd be dope.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, it's the What's Bruin Show on the What's Bruin Show Network. Thank you for your support. We have a bunch of shows on this feed, but the What's Bruin Show is the main one. What's Bruin Show, at What's Bruin Show on Twitter and on Instagram and on Threads. What's Bruin Show at gmail.com for your emails. Nancy emailed us this week. We'll get to her email either this show or next show. And on the Substack, what'sbruin.substack.com, there'll be occasional articles on there, but mainly it's just a way for you to enjoy another way to enjoy the show. And you can also subscribe there.
$2.
Or on Patreon, patreon.com/what'sbruinshow, or just what'sbruinshow.com. You can subscribe there too. And every once in a while you get some special shows on the Substack or on the Patreon.
$2.
When you pay us something like $2. But thank you very much. You can also search the show on YouTube. Just search What's Bruin Show, and it'll come up. There'll be a slideshow that's slightly outdated right now, but at some point may be updated. Maybe. I was supposed to do it on my vacation, and I didn't, and I apologize. But it's still enjoyable. It's 10 years of history of the What's Bruin Show in slideshow form, as you listen to me and Mike talk about something that happened this last week. So I kind of like the slideshow. I think it's okay, but it does need to be updated.
Yeah.
And I apologize, I haven't done it yet. You can also get What's Bruin Show merchandise on a My Locker site that I have no idea how to log on to. I have no idea how much we sold. I have no idea how much we will sell. But hey, buy stuff on there if you want something with the What's Bruin Show logo on it, or West Coast Bias, or the Bare Minimum, or whatever. And finally, you can call us on the hotline. Mike, we had like 10 hotline calls after the Hawaii game.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get 10 more after the Indiana game. Hopefully for good reasons, not horrible, terribly depressed reasons. But regardless, you can call the hotline, 805-399-4WBS.
Suck it right in a draw.
Suck it right in a draw. I'm supposed to have lunch with them on Friday after standing them up on Thursday dinner. Sorry about that. We have to do a football dinner. But anywho, yeah, call the hotline. Please call the hotline after the game, during the game, before the game, whatever. I will play it on the post-game show if it comes in on time. Otherwise, we'll play it on the next Tuesday show. But call the hotline, 805-399-4WBS, second reign of Troy. So, yeah, there we go. Mikey, tonight, we got a lot. It's probably going to be 2 shows worth of stuff. First off, we have an awesome interview that Mike set up 5 minutes before the show started.
Right.
I always love it when he says, Jake, we're doing an interview right now. And I'm like, great, I'm going to write some questions. Oh, this is awesome. But
I text him, and he texts back something simple, and I know that on the other end, it's like, you son of a... God,
however, once we do it, I always am happy that it was done. So please,
actually,
don't
in a way,
break what works, Mike.
Right, true. Because in a way, it takes away a lot of work for us.
Yeah,
especially when you have someone as insightful as Mr. Matthew Weaver.
And honestly, just to yeah, absolutely. At MB_Weaver from Pigs.com on the 24/7 sport.com network. Anywho, Mike, it also, like, when you tell me or when I know we have an interview, even with somebody that we've talked to a million times, like Wayne Cook, right? I still, like, obsess about what I'm going to ask for, a couple days, and I'll write stuff down, whatever, and I'll go back and erase it. So that's what's my process by nature. So when you tell me 5 minutes before, it actually saves me a lot of thinking about things, which is probably good.
No stress.
Although I hate you in the moment. I love you. I love you after the moment's
Trust
done.
me, I feel it.
I love it. It's kind of, it's maybe a little the reverse of, Mike, if me and you were a couple, I'd love you in the moment and hate you afterwards. But now I hate you before. I would love you more afterwards.
You're welcome.
So it's good.
You're
we
welcome,
have a healthy relationship, Mike. I just got a little weird, but hey, that's us. That's me and Mike.
Got a lot weird.
Anywho, let's get on with the bro-filiated headlines if we have any. Do we?
No. It's been all football.
How about a UCLA football health report? Do you have that?
Apparently.
Hold on.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, well, let's do that. This is the bro-filiated headlines or the UCLA health report, brought to you by Mike Regalado.
Iron Mike.
Big applause, Big Mike.
Hey, Mike.
What's up, Chip? Don't ever talk to me again. No, I'm just kidding. He's all right. He's all right. You know, the thing is, if I saw him on the street, he would probably say hi. That's kind of the weird aspect of my gig, to where, whatever, don't have any opinions outside of it. But I'm sure if he saw me on the street, he'd go, "Hey, Mike."
Hey, Mike. Just like this.
Hey, Mike.
There you go. There you go. Well, two of the big questions are the tackles for UCLA.
Yes.
Garrett DeGiorgio and Ruben Unije.
Please give me good news.
Deshaun Foster said we will see by the end of the week.
Dang it.
How their situation improves. Although he does say that they are improving slightly. Other than that, no major issues. I mean, they are working in drills, so there's that. But will they actually play? That's probably a game time decision. And if anything,
God, I hope so.
I sometimes Deshaun Foster. He's interesting to try to read the psychology behind his press conferences.
Hard to pick up on what his tea leaves are saying.
Exactly. So is he hiding the information? Is he saying, "Oh, we'll see at the end of the week," just to kind of throw everyone off because he knows everyone's looking, especially those that are UCLA's upcoming opponent. Really hard to. I mean, obviously that's what scout teams for, but really hard to try to game plan for a guy that's there and a guy that's not there. You have to keep things, keep every option open. So we'll see.
I just want to know if they're going to have tackles or not. That's really all I want.
Right, exactly. That'd be a good thing.
That'd be awesome if they did.
And not just that, but improved. O-line play overall. There were many different. Last week we talked about just some missing assignments from guards, tackles, throughout the game. And if you read Chris Osgood's story this week,
and why didn't you?
He goes into why the run game was very stagnant, and he goes into deep explanation about not every play, but on some key plays where this guy missed. Hey, this was good execution, but here was just a few different things. So I understand, Jake, why you were upset, or I guess why you're curious about the tackle situation.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, and there wasn't any other injury guys we were waiting on, right? Like everybody else was kind of like what they were heading into the Hawaii game, right?
Guys like Gary Smith, he's been in a boot all fall camp. He's not playing.
It'll be great when he's back, but we weren't expecting him, and he didn't play in the first game.
Yeah, Marquise Thorpe Taylor, he was amongst the very few injured near Wasserman, where they either do lifting or they're on the stationary bikes.
Sure.
Other than that, the guys who are out, and Jake, unfortunately, that has to do with your guy Country Strong. But I did
Country
see
Strong,
him.
Deshaun Morrell?
I met him last week.
One of the all-time GOAT favorites of the What's Bruin Show.
Oh heck yeah!
And why is that? Because he's a former guest of the What's Bruin Show.
Yep.
And he's country strong. Yeah, that guy.
I also told him you're his biggest fan, and
I am.
He had the biggest smile. When I said, "Hey, I'm from the What's Bruin Show," he goes, "Oh yeah." So I figured he remembered that he came on our show one time, and he's still not. There's no timetable for him, but he was walking around. Looking all spry, so I'm not going to make any assumptions, but hopefully we get to see him sometime this season.
It would be nice to see
would
him
be
compete.
ideal. Yes, exactly. Especially since we haven't seen him at all. But Country Strong,
Not one bit.
lives strong in our hearts. So, other than that, yeah, they're really that's actually not bad, considering how many other teams are already having some pretty major injuries. But UCLA is pretty healthy now. Take the healthy guys, do something, especially on offense. We'll get into that, but that's all we have for the injury report.
And the BRO-filiated Headlines.
Yeah, and and really quickly for the BRO-filiated Headlines, Chase Garber. I did it. I did it.
My
Wow,
God.
Chase Griffin.
Mike.
Sorry, Chase Griffin.
I have one thing to say to you.
What do you got to say, Jake? What did I do?
Gabers at quarterback.
My name is
Ethan.
just call me E.
Call me.
Chase Griffin had an event at the W
Hey,
Hotel.
you did it for the wrong guy.
No, I'm talking
it's so
about
funny.
Chase Griffin. Yeah, exactly. He had an event at the W Hotel, which I was able to go to on Thursday, in which he announced the start of his 1919 Players Fund, in which
Very cool.
It's basically it's kind of an NIL collective, but it's more about the Bruins on the team looking to invest into their own future, not just gaining NIL, but having a financial plan for their future.
Right.
And it was really interesting. Check out that interview up on Bruin Report Online, where I talked to Chase after the event. Well, actually, during the event. But yeah, I got to talk to a lot of different Bruins there. As I said, Country Strong was there. I talked to Garrett Giorgio. Noah Pueli was there. Jalen Davies. So yeah, there were a few different guys there. So it was an actual legit invitation from Mr. Griffin,
Very
who
cool.
is going to be one of our next presidents in the future. Methinks. But yeah, no, that was pretty cool. That was just a little sidebar with
I'd vote for him
Headlines.
this year. Can you run
So,
this year?
please?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he did run the offense, so I mean,
A little bit.
he just needs a secretary of defensive coverage.
Wow. All right. Can we end this?
I hate politics. Go.
Me too. All right, that was wonderful, and thank you very much, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
So we have two things on tap for this particular episode, and then we're going to stop, and then we're going to do another episode,
Mm-hmm.
which is super cool because we got tons of stuff to talk about with UCLA's first matchup against the Indiana Hoosiers, one of the other quote-unquote basketball schools of the Big Ten, and how much UCLA deserves that label versus Indiana is something that I want to talk about later, maybe in the next show. But that's kind of what it is. Like, we can't help the way that we are branded from the outside sometimes, and that's just kind of one of the storylines it is. So, in order to talk about UCLA's first game against Indiana, Mike got us a great guest, as we just talked about. So we're going to get right to that interview with Matthew Weaver, and then we'll come back and do some Big Ten talk. So, Mikey, let's get Matthew on the line. All right, join us now on the What's Bruin hotline. We have Matthew Weaver at MB_Weaver on the Twitter. He covers Indiana football on Peegs.com of the 24/7 Sports Network. Thank you very much for joining us, Matthew. How are you doing that?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys?
Dude, we are great. Now, I have one very obvious question that I am unfamiliar with. What the heck does Peegs.com stand for? What's the significance to IU?
We're West Coasters, so we're slowly learning.
We're trying.
That's okay. So the guy who did the site years ago, his name's Mike Pegram. His name's spelled Pegram, and I guess Peegs. I don't know if he did that his nickname or that was the nickname he had. He swam at IU back in the 80s. I think he was there around the time. Who's that real good swimmer for Spitz?
Nice.
One of those Olympic medals back. Yeah, he was. I think he was they were around the same time or crossed paths or something. I don't know that Mike was a super great swimmer, but yeah, he was at IU, and that's where Peaks comes from. Like I said, I'm not sure if the nickname was something that was given to him or he just, made it his nick, but that's how the site's named, where it came from.
Oh, very cool, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we basically were wondering if it had anything to do with Indiana lore or history, because as I said, we're slowly learning about the Big Ten. Things that have come out recently is that obviously we know UCLA and Indiana haven't played each other before, but Indiana went to the Rose Bowl, 1968. Little things like that. So that's why we wanted to bring you on, get some information, and so we do have some hard-hitting questions that we want to start off with.
Okay.
First off, I want to talk about you real quick. How long have you been covering Indiana, and what was your path towards 24/7?
Well, when I started with the site, it was in 2008. So it was the year after, if you remember Indiana, Terry Hepner was the coach. He got ill. He got brain cancer.
Wow.
He was hired, I think, 2006. He passed away. Was it 2005? I can't remember. But his 2007. He passed away like right before fall camp would start, like June or July. Bill Lynch was named the interim coach. They went to the bowl game. It was called the Insight Bowl. I don't know. I think it's been renamed, but it was out. It was actually played in Tempe at where Arizona State plays. So the next year, I actually came and started, and I've been with the site since then. We were actually with Rivals initially, Rivals.com, and then we went to, if you guys remember, Scout. We were at Scout for like a couple years, and 4/7 bought a bunch of Scout sites, and we were one of those that got bought. So I can't remember how long it's been. We've been at 247. It's been a number of years, and it's been a great experience. So, I grew up in Southern Indiana, not too far from Bloomington. Worked for the football team when I was there as a manager. Worked in recruiting.
Oh, wow.
So I was there when I'll date myself. I was there when Antoine played. Antoine Randall. For people out there may not know who he is, but he was a great player for IU. Played for the Steelers. Won the Super Bowl with the Steelers. Actually, was a quarterback in college. They got moved receiver because back then you didn't have 5'11" quarterbacks. Now it's not a big deal to be 5'11" at quarterback, but got moved to receiver and actually threw a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl on like a half or a wide receiver, like his lateral, and then he threw the ball or whatever. So that's kind of my background. Been just like I said since 2008, and a lot of lean years in football, a few good ones, but hopefully better days ahead, because it's, you guys know, people always ask me, what's it like to cover a team that goes 3-9? I'm like, well, basically you're writing an obituary every week.
Yeah.
And I hate to, I'm not saying it's the same thing as dying, obviously, but that's what it feels like. It just gets kind of like depressing, and it's tough. And, so hopefully there's some better days ahead. There were a couple good years in 19 and 20. But obviously the last few years for the program have not been great. And, Kurt Signetti's been a breath of fresh air, and, hopefully he can produce some success for IU.
No, and believe me, we know exactly what you're talking about. We had a few years in a row, like the worst years in UCLA history, just within the last 6 years. So totally get exactly what you're saying about that. But you do have this new coach, and you guys fired that dude, or your former coach, in November, and a few days later, with very, with much confidence, you hire Kurt Signetti, and I think it's been, an arrow pointing up ever since. But we know that you guys started, IU started 2-0 and looked absolutely fabulous this last week. But just give us your impressions about Signetti since he's taken over the program. It's been 8-9 months now.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy. He's obviously got a ton of experience. He's 63, but I mean, I think he's one of those guys. He seems younger than his age. I told people would ask when it was going bad with Tom Allen. What should Indiana look for? Should you get the young up and coming coach or whatever? And this is easier than that. I told them they should look for Lance Leipold, however you say his last name, the guy at Kansas.
Yeah,
a guy who has been at different levels and won. And to me, what shows to me a guy can coach is when you go to a school that's been losing. I don't care if you're NIA, Division III, whatever it is. They've been losing, and you immediately go in and you start having success. It's not like you could go bring in a bunch of free agents. You don't have the portal wasn't available back then. Even if it was, you're not going to get guys at Indiana, PA, or Elon. You win with the guys that had been losing. That tells me you can coach. You can take other guys' players, and you can figure out a way to win with them. And, he's done that. And that's what they need because, Indiana is a unique job. And when I say unique, I mean that in not a good way. Okay, this is the graveyard for coaches. It's been where coaching careers go to die. It really has been. It's been no coach in Indiana has left. At least in my lifetime, has left with a winning record. Bill Mallory is the most successful coach in Indiana in my lifetime, and he's like, I want to say 9 or 10 games, something like that, maybe more than that, under 500. And he did a great job, but it's a tough place to win. It's a basketball school, although recently that's not really been the case either. But in their mind, it's a basketball school. The fans care more about basketball, and it's tough. And they're starting to realize though that football is important. Football pays the bills, and so they went out and got a ball coach. And to me, that's for the best compliment you give a guy. And to me, Kurt Cinetti's a ball coach. Now we'll see if it gets late. They're 2-0. They haven't beaten anybody, all that great. Florida National might be decent. Western Illinois is one of the first college football teams I've ever seen in my life. But you did what you're supposed to do to a team like that. You absolutely hammer them.
For sure.
A lot of the things he's done, just watch him in practice. We don't get to watch practice once the season starts. I haven't been at practice in a month. But during fall camp, we got to watch him. It was just different. The attention to detail, the pace, the way they did things, the organization. It just was different than I was used to from the previous regime. And we'll see if it shows up. I think they will be better. Indiana lost 5 games last year basically by 1 score, and I'm including Penn State. That was a 9-point loss. But really, it was a 1-possession game. They got a safety late when Indiana was trying to score. Right, they got the ball rolled in the end zone. So, this team, if Indiana wins 3 of those games, Kurt Cinetti's not in Indiana. That's just they're 6-6, and Tom Allen's still coaching at IU. It's they're. I tell people they're close, but yet they're so far away. They were close, but there's things that need to change for them to get be more competitive. And I'm not saying I don't expect Indiana. I think a lot of fans expect them to be Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State or for the schools out there for you guys. I don't know. I guess Oregon would be the school or somebody like that.
Yeah.
But there's no reason why you can't go consistently. Be good. And go to bowl games on a fairly consistent basis. And then maybe you have a year where you have a bunch of seniors, you win 9 or 10 games. But Cignetti has definitely changed the mindset. It's not something that people have seen, at least with the football program around here.
That's awesome.
He brought in quite a few guys into the program, and it's resulted in 2-0 starts. Who do you think have been some of the most valuable additions in those first 2 games?
Well, Curtis Rourke, the quarterback from Ohio, 2 years ago, he was the offensive player of the year in the MAC. And honestly, probably, I'm not saying he'd be a starter in the NFL, but he'd probably be on a roster somewhere. But late in that season, he tore his ACL. I think it was like their 11th or 12th game. It was really late in the season, right before the bowl game. So he, that kind of wrecked his chances to maybe, to try to go into the draft. But he's been good. He's not going to wow you with a lot of his fit, but he's just a smart guy. He's probably 5th or 6th year now. Makes good reads, accurate. He's got a good enough arm. I wouldn't say he's got a cannon, but he could definitely make all the throws you need a quarterback to make. So he's been a good addition. They brought a bunch of guys from JMU. Obviously, they knew that roster. I think it's 13. So they've got like 3 running backs from there. They got a receiver, some linemen, some defensive players. A lot of those guys, Aiden Fisher on defensive linebacker, Jalen Walker. He's another linebacker. They've been good. James Carpenter, McCall Kamara on the D-line. D'Angelo Pons at corner. Then on offense, the running backs, Kalen Black, Tyson Lawton, Solomon Van Horst. They've all helped. Elijah Surratt was a really good receiver for them last year. Cincinnati he did a little differently in a lot of schools. Some schools will try to get that guy who's a 3rd string at USC or Georgia or wherever it may be,
right,
who was a 4 or 5-star recruit but can't get on the field. He actually went after guys who maybe they weren't big-time recruits, but they played at JMU or at Old Dominion, maybe places like that. And there's some Power 4 guys on there too, but guys that had production and had shown for 2 or 3 years, they've been productive players. So his philosophy is a little bit different. And it doesn't mean that his is right or the other way is wrong. Tom Allen kind of went the other way. He tried to get productive players, but also guys who were kind of buried on the depth chart. So, I think either way can work. It's just, to me, it's all about, you got to identify the players, and you guys all know in the portal, they've got sometimes a few days to identify a guy. And then, but the biggest thing is, can you develop them? Can you coach them up? And obviously the portal kind of helps you with that if you got holes to fill. But there's been a number of guys. A lot of these transfers have really made an impact. Like I said, probably Curtis Rourke. on offense, and then I'd probably say Aiden Fisher on defense have been two of the bigger ones. But so far, and it's 2 games in, and it's 2 of the weaker opponents on the schedule. They've definitely made an impact.
I wanted to ask you about Justice Ellison really quickly, because he looked like an absolute beast against Western Illinois. Just a big body, and he had no problem finding the end zone. What are your thoughts on how he's done in the early part of the season?
Yeah, he's been a good addition to. He's played at Wake Forest. He had some good seasons with the Demon Deacons. He's got good bursts, and like you said, it's funny, they got their 3 running backs, top 3. Justice Ellison, Tyson Lawton, and Kaylon Black. The last 2 are from JMU. They're all about the same size, like 5'10", 5'11", like 205, 210. They all kind of, not exactly look alike, but kind of similar. He's probably got a little bit more burst than the other 2. So, I mean, I'm not saying he's a super fast guy, but he's got some burst to him, and you kind of saw that against Western Illinois. But, yeah, he's been a good addition. It tells you what they think of him. He just joined the program, and he was one of the guys they brought to the Big Ten Media Days, which I thought said a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
And Signetti said there was 3 different kinds of players he wanted to bring to the Big Ten Media Day. One from JMU, one transfer who had come from JMU, one transfer who had not, and then one player who had been with the program, for more than longer than he'd been there. And Justice Ellison was the player that was a transfer not from JMU. So it kind of tells you, and you can see why he's extremely well spoken. Did a great job. You could just very mature guy, and obviously being a 5th-year guy. So yeah, he's been a good addition. And they kind of, there's no bell cow for them at running back. They rotate 3 guys. And honestly, Elijah Green's a 4th guy from UNC, North Carolina, who has looked great in limited duty. I mean, it's a good problem to have. They've actually, I don't know if you have too many running backs. They almost kind of do, because there's not enough balls to go around. But Ellison has been a nice, definitely a nice add. So,
it's hard to nitpick anything about a 77-3 loss, but you'd say, or win, I should say, absolute butt kicking over the first couple games, even though that is against kind of lesser opponents. What has been, as far as offense versus defense for Indiana, what's been the more impressive side of the ball, and are there any question marks still in your mind other than just how are they going to do against better competition?
Yeah, I would say, well, first game, the offense played well in the first half, and then it was kind of blah. In the second half, they were flat. Didn't finish some drives against Florida International. So I would say the defense was better. Now, the defense at the end of the first half let FIU go right down the field. I think there was just a couple minutes to go, and they scored a touchdown, and Signetti was not pleased. And actually, the same thing kind of happened against Western Illinois. They didn't get a touchdown, but the only drive they had the entire game was there at the end of the second half, and they got a field goal out of it. So, a little bit concerning, because you don't want to finish halves like that.
Yeah.
I would say overall the defense has probably been a little bit better when you take both games into account. Against Western Illinois, both sides were pretty dominant. Florida International game, the defense was a little bit better. Concerns. He did say even against Western Illinois, there were about 4 or 5 breakdowns in the secondary that didn't show up because they were playing Western Illinois.
Right.
If they have those breakdowns this week and going forward as they get into the Big Ten, then those breakdowns could obviously be big problems. Hopefully they get those fixed. But he said on tape they saw those, even though the average fan wouldn't have, because nothing bad happened in the game. Offensively, the O-line struggled a little bit with pass pro in the first game, and it was really more off the edges now. And it was, when I say off the edges, their left tackle Carter Smith's really pretty good. I think he's a next level guy. The right tackle, Trey Weddick, is a transfer from Wisconsin, and the O-line coach in Indiana, Bob Bostad, coached him when he was at Wisconsin a couple years ago. He has struggled a little bit. I'm interested to see how he does this week. I don't know, just because I haven't followed you guys as much as you haven't been in the Big Ten until now, but I'm assuming there's some speed on the edge on defense for UCLA, and that could give Weddick some problems. I'm interested to see how he handles that this week, because he even in Western Illinois one play, they went by him, and it almost got to Rourke. They barely touched Rourke the entire game. There was one time. So that to me could be a bit of an issue. And the run blocking's been pretty good, but they're going to see a different level of athlete for sure this week and going forward. So we'll see how they can do, in run blocking and pass pro and offense. And then defensively, how are they going to do against better athletes? UCLA is going to have far better athletes than they've seen the first 2 weeks. And so, how are they going to match up? And first couple of drives, maybe a little bit of the adjustment period, just because of that difference in athleticism from their first games to this week. So that's what it's great to be 2-0, and they look good doing it for the most part. But I don't know how much you can glean from, especially this past week, beating a team like that was not very good. There's a lot you can take from as far as getting guys snaps and reps and all that kind of thing, but I'm not sure how much it gives you an idea what to expect going forward. So this will definitely be a much better test and a much better kind of blueprint of what Indiana's going to look like.
Yeah, no doubt.
We got one final question for you. Indiana comes to the Rose Bowl to play UCLA for the first time, as I said earlier, this Saturday, and we've been hearing varying reports of what the Indiana contingent will be. First off, are you coming? And secondly, what's your impression of how many Indiana fans will be at the Rose Bowl on Saturday?
Yeah, I will be there. I'm flying in Friday, so I will be there. I'm excited for it. I mean, obviously, you guys know in our jobs we kind of check our fandom at the door. You got to be professional about it. But I grew up an Indiana fan. I worked for the program. I had my season tickets when I was a kid. My family did. So deep down, I want IU to do well. But when I'm in the press box, I'm impartial and try to do my job. But I've always told people I wanted to see Indiana play in the Rose Bowl. I was hoping it would actually be the Rose Bowl, game, but it's still going to be very cool. I mean, I'm looking forward. I've been to LA a couple times. Actually, my sister-in-law lives north of LA, and I think it's Camarillo.
Yeah,
is the town she lives in.
Absolutely.
But I haven't been out there in a number of years. We visited a number of years ago, but I'm looking forward to it. I mean, on TV, it looks absolutely gorgeous. So I'm excited to see the stadium and see the backdrop with the mountains and all that. And so as far as the fans, there's a couple guys who do a podcast on our site called Hoosier Hysterics. They're like kind of Hollywood guys. One is a producer for shows out there. I think he did that show, Taxi Cab Karaoke. Is that what it's called? I could have that wrong.
Yeah,
something like that. But anyways,
sounds right.
Yeah. One of them is kind of like he's an actor. But anyways, they tried to get tickets through IU, and supposedly they were sold out. And I don't know how many they get.
Nice.
I heard that it
I'm
was
guessing maybe 50.
Yeah, I heard it was 1,500.
Probably a couple thousand at most.
Yeah.
1,500. That sounds right.
Yeah.
So he said that he actually bought tickets to UCLA. So here's the thing. Here's one good thing for Indiana fans for this year. The schedule. There was only four away games. UCLA, and then the other three are Northwestern, Michigan State, and Ohio State. For people here, let's say you're coming from Indianapolis, those are you can go back and forth in one day, depending on the time of the game. So if you were going to kind of splurge for one trip, this would be the one to splurge on because you get to go to the Rose Bowl, you get to go to Southern California, and see Indiana and UCLA. So I don't have a number. I think it's going to be at least a couple thousand, but I think there could be, and I'm guessing there's a decent number of people who went to IU and maybe live in LA or live kind of out west, who are going to make might be a shorter drive for them. But I am very interested to see what kind of crowd Indiana brings. Obviously they struggle to get people at home, but for some reason when they go somewhere like bowl games, or which they haven't done a lot, but something like this, they seem to get a decent turnout. So I'm really interested to see how much, and obviously the color will be able to show because you'll have either gold and blue for UCLA or the red and white for Indiana. So
it's going to look nice.
I mentioned, but I think it's going to be a pretty good turnout. I know there's a bit, kind of a tailgate there's a golf course I think right next to the Rose Bowl. Is that right?
Yep.
Next to the stadium.
Yeah.
There's some kind of a big red tailgate or something that people are going to. So it'll be interesting. I think I may stop by there, and I assume all those people are going to the game. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think it's going to be a pretty decent turnout. Number-wise, I would guess at least a few thousand, but maybe it's going to be more than that.
Yeah, I'm real curious to see what it is because I've heard anywhere from like thousands to the story about you selling out your allotment. But I think you're right. I think a lot of people are just buying the tickets through UCLA, and I feel like there's a lot of local folks around here that are going to be out there with their red on. But it's going to be fun. Now, thank you so much, Matthew, for joining the show. Believe me, we feel your pain as UCLA football fans. I graduated in '99, and we haven't been to a Rose Bowl since then.
Yeah.
So it feels like we've been pushing a boulder uphill for a long time too. So we can all just get out to the Rose Bowl and hopefully have a fun game and commiserate with each other, and one of us will walk away happy and one a little bit more sad. But hey, it should be a nice day anyway. And we got a great start time. 4:30 is a beautiful time to be at the Rose Bowl. So, thank you very much for joining the show, my brother, and have a great trip. And we will catch up with you soon, maybe.
Okay, thanks, guys. Take care.
You as well.
Do you think we drink too much?
No, we don't drink too much. Men face reality, women don't. That's why men need to drink.
I hate it when podcasters talk about what they're drinking.
What else am I gonna drink, Bob? A fucking Fresca?
No, we're not having Fresca tonight, but thank you, Mike. This is What's Bruin Symposium on the What's Bruin Show Network. Symposium is a conversation over drinks, and that's what we're having. A couple of drinks right here. Mike will usually have a beer, and I'll usually have a whiskey. And we talk about it, and then we ask you for money. But, Mike, what are you drinking tonight?
To buy more beer and booze and all
That's
that
right.
stuff. Tonight, I found this lovely little piece at Trader Joe's. Actually, Trader Joe's they're really pimping out
They got some deals there.
the local breweries. This one is from Trademark Brewing. I didn't see where that one's from. I'll check that out. But I saw this shiny black and rainbow-esque can. Saw it was the name is
cool
the name is Codebreaker, and it's a West Coast IPA. And since Indiana is coming to the West Coast, I figured I would have a West Coast Indiana pale ale,
Close enough.
ish, sort of. Sorry, but yeah, it's this can is the things they're doing with cans these days. I swear to God, that's a whole industry in and of itself.
like a-
Anyway,
Lithograph thing, kind of thing.
there you go. That's a perfect way to explain it. Jake, what do you have?
I came up big this week, big time deal in that I went to Costco kind of randomly during my vacation week, walked in at 10 a.m., and there were bottles of Blanton's and E.H. Taylor on the shelf. Very, very discounted. So I got a bottle of Blanton's for like $60, which is pretty kick-ass, and that's what I'm having right now, enjoying that as one will when they find a really good deal on a bottle of whiskey. So, yeah, cheers to you, Mike. Of course, Blanton's is the original single-barrel bourbon, and it is tremendously overpriced now. So when you find it at retail, never not buy it. But thank you very much for joining us on the symposium for just a couple bucks a month.
$2.
How much, Mike?
$2.
$2.
You can send the What's Bruin Show into the future. You can subscribe on whatsbruin.substack.com or at just whatsbruin.com or at patreon.com/whatsbruinshow. And we completely appreciate your support because, that's what's going to keep us running. This independent little pirate ship of a UCLA podcast afloat in the Big Ten waters. So cheers to you. Thank you very much. And go Bruins.
Big Ten Talk begins now.
Wow, Mike, that was pretty good. I know it's like the demo version of the new Big Ten Talk theme, but I think that's good. I like it.
Thank you. Yeah, I got to finalize that, but
It's okay. Hey, it's a great first run, and now we have it. So to wrap up this part A of the show, let's do a little bit of Big Ten talk, which is also going to be called Eye on the Enemy.
The enemy.
So, Mikey, I wanted to just kind of briefly, and you would want to do a little bit of Big Ben talk too, Big Ten talk too. But I want to take a little bit of time each week and just look at. I really don't, to be honest with you. I'm going to watch Michigan, Texas. Do I really give a flying crap about that game?
Yeah.
Not at all.
yeah, we don't need to go into all 18
Ohio
games.
State kick the living shit out of everybody on their schedule.
Yeah.
Do I care about that? No, because we're not playing them, and we're not going to play them at all this year.
Yeah.
What I want to do is kind of look at the teams that are on UCLA's schedule still, and kind of do a little bit of stock up or stock down, right, on these teams. And so when you think about these teams, are you going to give them like the applause, stocks going up, or are you going to give them the old trombone? Is it go Bruins, beat the Golden Bears, or no? Is it what's a positive one that I have? Do I have anything that's good? I don't know. All my things are like, oh, do I have a hey, we're feeling pretty good about these guys? Or are we?
I lost my mojo.
I lost my mojo a little bit. Okay, that's where we're at. Okay, we'll go with those two. So, anyways, we're gonna start right now. We're gonna do we just talked to a very good guest, Matthew Weaver, just a moment ago about Indiana football. But just from your perspective, Indiana, smoked two inferior teams so far. Are we saying they're a little bit of stock up or kind of stock down? I don't. It's kind of almost a rhetorical question, right?
Yeah, exactly. You put up 77 on anybody. That's
and guess what? IU fans are like,
oh, very much so. It's you know, I don't want to get on them because, as Matthew said, Indiana has had a few bad years, but you can tell, especially from the podcast that I've listened to, you can tell that they expected improvements, they saw improvements, and I think Cignetti shattered those expectations, and I honestly don't think Indiana fans are like, yeah, we're going to do this every single game. I think they have a little bit of. I think they have a lot of
cautiously optimistic.
There you go. They have a lot of
how it can go.
Their thoughts are based in reality, but again, you can't
help but get a boner.
Wow, it's
over 77-3.
77 points, 700.
They didn't punt.
701. Total offense. It was just pretty. It was insane what they did.
Definitely stock up. Okay.
Yes,
well,
yes,
next,
definitely.
we go to the old Bayou Bengals. I'm about to get on a plane in a week and a half to go to my hometown of New Orleans.
Did you see?
And I'm going to drive to Baton Rouge.
Did you see the kickoff announcement?
What time was it?
12:30 or 1:15.
Yeah, exactly. The Godfather
what?
just told me that today. That's right.
It's like, what?
We'll see. I don't care. I just need to get there and then
exactly.
enjoy it. But LSU. Where's your thought on this team now, Mikey? Now that they had lost SC in that close game, they very easily could have won.
Yeah.
But then they come out and they give up 2 70-plus yard, 13-play drives for touchdowns, and then a 70-yard run for a touchdown to Nichols. Is LSU better or worse in your mind from when the season started?
I think they're worse, but I'm not going to say by much. I mean,
lost my mojo.
There are a lot of teams that are already trending up big time and trending down big time. I don't think they're trending down big time. I think they're just a scotch below what we thought of them at the beginning. But I'm still predicting an LSU win.
I want to get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, once we get through the whole schedule. But on my rundown, I'm using a scale of thumbs up, thumbs down, or like a hold fist, And if they're doing really good, we're giving them multiple thumbs up. So far, I have Indiana with 1 thumbs up, and I have LSU with 1 thumbs down. I think that's kind of where I feel about it too.
Yeah,
I don't know really too much about LSU, but I think they're not quite as good as people were expecting them to be, or at least they're not quite good enough that good yet. So there are some questions, but you're still not like, oh my gosh, they're trash.
Yeah.
Speaking of another team where they've been struggling, certainly less than they're not. Things aren't ideal for the old Oregon Ducks, right? They have struggled in 2 games. One was to a quality team in Boise State, but I mean they very easily could have lost that game. They're having terrible O-line problems. Their fans are questioning what's happening, wondering if these guys are so good but just not ready for prime time. What has been your thoughts on the Ducks so far?
I think they're still good. Gabriel's still put up an impressive amount of stats. I just think they kind of got. I don't want to say blindsided, but Boise State also looks really good, and that was a very close game. And then I keep thinking, it's like, wow, UCLA beat this team last year, but in reality, though, Boise State and UCLA are 2 very different teams right now.
Definitely.
I think Oregon, here's the thing. Oregon was down. They come back and win the game. That says something. When you know how to win, that's big. Not just beating your opponent just so the result is that you win, but being in this is what I was actually thinking about this, watching Oregon and Boise State. How many times has UCLA been in that position under Chip Kelly, and how many times did they come out with the win? I don't think once. If UCLA would have pulled out that win against USC with the DTR versus Caleb Williams game at the Rose Bowl 2 years ago, that offhand would have probably been the first game UCLA would have legitimately won, but by the seat of their pants against a good opponent. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Anyway, going back to Oregon and Boise State, Oregon found a way to finish. That's all that matters. So I think I'm holding. I'm at I'm holding steady, Jake. Holding steady. No up, no down. I'm holding steady.
I think right now, definitely Oregon fans are feeling
I lost my mojo.
how, like the Ducks, they're totally wimpy right now.
The Ducks? They're wimpy. They don't even have teeth.
But I think we're all expecting the Ducks to be in mighty formation very soon. And
Have you guys ever seen a
no
flock
doubt.
of ducks flying in perfect formation?
perfect formation. And I think I think we're just kind of waiting for them to get it all together. But I am curious to see how the Ducks do in their next game or so leading into them traveling to the Rose Bowl, right? Penn State, they have a nice win to open up the season. Durallo looks pretty good. And then they go right down to the wire against Bowling Green. Probably should have got beat by Bowling Green, but they didn't get beat by Bowling Green. Kind of a similar game to what UCLA had against a much, according to some people, much lesser opponent in Hawaii. But it was the same kind of thing. They were like battling the whole game. They were down. I think they were down like 17-0 in that game. And then they come back. I think they kind of played much better in the second half than the first half, kind of one of those kind of things. But where are you at with Penn State so far? The Bruins have to go there in less than a month.
They're definitely looking weaker than I expected.
Really?
I at this point, I think they're looking weaker, but I'll have them hold off too. I'm doing my little hula dance right here. That's my
I got it.
expressionism of holding steady.
Good job.
But I think there's. I heard a few Indiana podcasts and Big Ten podcasts where a lot of people were saying, "Oh yeah, no, this is definitely not a playoff team." That's hard to say at the beginning of the season. If they rattle off like another 10 wins, I'm sure they're going to be in the playoffs.
It just depends on really where they finish in the conference. Really.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like I was a little dubious about how they're going to pull it all together for this particular year and whether Aller was going to be any good. And I know they were in a dogfight with Bowling Green, but I still kind of feel like they're a little bit better than I thought they were going into the season. So we'll see. Minnesota, they blow a game to North Carolina, but then they do pretty good against an FCS team. Do you have any thoughts on the Fighting Row the Boaters from Minnesota, considering UCLA has that's if Indiana's a must-win before the 3-game stretch, Minnesota's a must-win after the 3-game stretch. So how are you feeling about Minnesota?
Oh, I think they're looking a little stronger, but they're still. I think they're where I thought they would be.
Okay.
No strong opinion either way. They obviously got the win, and considering that they lost the week before, they kind of had to win, and
they kind of blew that game too.
Yeah, exactly. So
but they look good
I think they're okay. Yeah, I think they're looking good, but that's not much there. Yeah.
At Rutgers. Oh, by the way, Indiana, I actually found a drop for Indiana. I wish that as we go through the season, as we go through the stock on all of our teams on the schedule, I will have drops for these guys. So far, I just have one for Oregon. I really should have one for LSU as well. But I do have one for Indiana that I just found. So this is what will be every time we mention Indiana from now on.
And Indiana football history makes you cry.
Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. So anyways,
yeah.
Getting on with it. At Rutgers. We're going to be at Rutgers in a little over a month. They have so far crock-potted 2 lesser teams, but looked pretty good doing it. Do you have any strong feels on Rutgers?
No. Who did they play? I'm trying to look why is
2
my
crappy
computer-
FCS teams.
Yeah.
I want to say. Yeah. I mean, they might have been FCS, but they weren't very good.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think they're doing what they should be doing. They are. Excuse me. Shiano's doing a pretty decent job, but they haven't really played anybody. So, yeah, there's still a lot to – kind of like with Indiana, we need to see more in a different light, and we're definitely going to see that with Indiana against UCLA, as well as we're going to see more from UCLA. But, yeah, Rutgers is who I think they are right now.
So far they beat Howard and Akron, right? And they beat them pretty convincingly.
49-17, but, yeah.
Something I probably should do going forward next week, it'll be looking at the win prediction on these things. And right now, Rutgers has supposedly, according to ESPN Win Predictor, they're a 70% winner versus UCLA, which UCLA has to travel on the road.
70%.
That's what they're saying right now. So we'll see. All these things change. Dramatic. Look how much the Indiana one has changed just in a week or two, right? Depending on how these teams are playing.
Yeah.
At Nebraska, this certainly is one that's definitely...
Go Huskers! My Corn Huskers!
They're definitely stocked
My
up, right?
freaking Corn Huskers!
Dylan Raiola winning over Dion.
Dude, I was watching the game, and I think it was Nebraska's second touchdown, and I just went. My daughter Poppy looks at me and goes, "Dad, that was diabolical." I'm like,
nice.
I'm like, wait, what did I do? And she's like, "You just had this crazy laugh. Like I just was not in my own mind. And I'm like, was I? And I looked at my son, Hugo. He goes, yeah, that was creepy, Dad. I was like, oh, well then Nebraska must be doing something right. I don't want to lay it on Colorado. And it kind of sucks that the Colorado fandom is going through this. But it's a circus. It's more of the same, and he's not even producing. The fact that they just squeaked by. What was it? I think they played South Dakota State in week 1, and then they got trounced. And it was what everybody predicted. They have no line, offensive or defensive, and Nebraska took advantage of that. And Shedeur Sanders was he was smothered.
Mike,
he has a lot of red on his jersey.
Are we playing Colorado this year?
No, but it's good to see them. Get to the chopper! It's kind of how
I know we're it's the Schadenfreude. I understand. I completely understand.
But no, but okay. Going to Nebraska, Nebraska actually looked really. Their offensive line looked very powerful. But again, you have to take into consideration who they're playing, and the defensive line of actually, like I said, both lines dominated the line of scrimmage for Nebraska. It's because Colorado doesn't have any. They have highlight players, and that's it.
Hurt.
They're getting hurt. Yeah.
But getting back to Nebraska, like they look about as good as they would want to look, I think. And their freshman quarterback.
I honestly think Raiola looked.
Yeah.
He did not look like a freshman.
Yeah.
He looked like a stud, just like in the pocket, cool, calm. Looked like a junior. He had a few mistakes, but he looked really good.
Iowa, Mike. If there's a team that has lost their mojo,
Wow, mojo.
It is
I
Iowa,
had them as
who gave up a 13-point lead, which seems inconceivable in Iowa lore. They had the ball twice inside the 5-yard line and came away with 2 field goals. I mean, just unbelievable. Where you feeling about the old Hawkeyes?
Oof. Well, first off, my college football playoff bracket was busted in week 0 when Florida State lost, and now it continues to crumble because Iowa.
I thought Iowa was going to be good too, just because of their schedule. Their schedule is so light.
I thought they were going to have a more dominating defense at the very least. That seems to be a little bit weaker. Just from what I've seen, clearly we're not Big Ten guys.
We're Big Ten
fully.
Guys.
Like invested, we're newbies. We're transfers. We hit the portal.
Yeah.
So we're slowly understanding what all this is about. But Iowa did not look good.
They did not, and so it is kind of weird. Yeah. Washington, where one of my buddies has a kid there.
Yeah.
Defensive back. It's awesome. See him out there.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think about the Huskies so far? Because they haven't really. They're kind of another thing where they ain't played nobody, but they're going to have some challenges coming up. I can't think of who they have this week. Do you remember who they have this week? Anyways, what do you think about the Huskies so far?
Same deal. I think they looked how we expected. They're taking on Eastern Michigan. They took on Eastern Michigan, won 30-9.
Oh yeah, geez, they got the Apple Cup this week.
Impressive.
We're gonna find out what's up with Washington.
Oh, that's right.
When they have the Apple Cup.
And Oregon and Oregon State. That's happening. So bizarre to have this in freaking September. Yeah. But anyway,
I kind of dig it though.
At least they kept the that rivalry going. So cheers to them.
Yeah.
I hope they continue with that.
I wish we were playing Kansas stupid Fresno State, but
yeah, seriously.
This year, maybe
I would have taken that. Actually, not this year.
Right now,
actually, not
at this point?
year.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe it's a good break.
Yeah. Go Cal.
Yeah.
Beat the Auburn Tigers. Beat them with impunity. Yeah.
Go Bruins, beat the Golden Bears, beat them as hard as you can, beat them with impunity.
I don't know where my other one is. That's like positive for Cal.
That's right.
It's okay.
Oh, by the way, Emily Mortimer, if you're listening to this podcast, I love you.
We all do. It's okay.
But yeah, Washington they seem like how Washington should be.
Absolutely. I agree with that. But I think given their two lesser opponents, once again, they're looking about as good as you would want. So I think Washington fans are actually feeling a little bit of, happiness. The last team on the schedule that we're going to talk about is going to be Fresno State, those stupid Bulldogs, who they were one score away from being ahead of Michigan going into the fourth quarter, and then they also managed to beat up a lesser opponent. So Fresno State struggling with Michigan, but giving them a game. Do you have any thoughts on the Bulldogs? I know it's out of conference.
Honestly, I haven't even seen what Fresno State has done. So, what are they 2-0 so far?
No. They're 1-1. They lost to Michigan, but they were in that game in the fourth quarter. So it's like, I think Fresno State's kind of.
That's right. I did see a little bit of that game.
Having lost their coach and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We'll see. And then the team we're going to ignore.
Well, I do bring up. I do want to bring up this point. They barely lose to Michigan. Michigan got their arse kicked. What does that say for UCLA?
I don't know if we say anything because Michigan got their butts kicked by one of the best teams in the country. So it's like, what's going to happen when Michigan faces Ohio State, right?
Yeah.
I don't care too much because we don't have to play either of those teams. But the Fresno part of it is Fresno was good enough to give Michigan. Fresno was good enough to give Michigan a game, so they can't be horribly
in the big house. I was in the big house, right?
Yeah, it was. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, they can't be that bad.
Yeah.
The last team that I skipped over and that I don't want to spend too much time thinking about them because they're pretty much Voldemort to me right now is SC, and of course our friends across town. Their boners are way up.
Jeez.
Everybody's got a Trojan boner right now over there, and it's disgusting. And I just had lunch with a Trojan buddy, and I spent the whole lunch MFing him over Danton Lynn and Kamari Ramsey, and I'm not happy with how things are turning out. But we can ignore them for like a month and a half and just hope that something bad happens to their schedule. But as of right now, it's not trending well.
No.
Right, Mike? No. Not good at all. So the long and the short of it, when you look at UCLA's schedule as a whole, I actually think that overall, or Mike, what do you think about, looking at how you looked at UCLA tackling their schedule this year and what you predict them to be, right? Did you say 8, 7, 6?
7-5.
7-5. You said 7-5, right?
Yeah.
They've got one game under their belt. They struggled to beat Hawaii. Didn't look nearly as good on offense as we wanted them to. And now that's what we're left with. And then you look at all the teams left on the schedule we just talked about, starting with Indiana. Do you think the Bruins are still on pace for your prediction of 7-5? Do you think that it's going to be a little harder to get to 7-5? Or do you think it's going to be easier to get to 7-5? Mike, in your humble opinion.
Honestly, I would, gun to my head, I would say it would be harder, but I would like to see more information, more statistics.
Obviously. We only have one data point so far.
Exactly. So, I think we'll have a clearer picture after this weekend.
And I don't think you could come to any other conclusion that it looks like their schedule has gotten harder going through, because you can make the argument that the 3-game death march of at LSU, Oregon, and Penn State is
weakened,
surprisingly easier than we thought it would be a couple weeks ago. However,
let's not count our chickens yet.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, even if those 3 games aren't as hard as we thought they were going to be, I still don't think either one of us are going to pick UCLA to win any of those games.
No.
It's like those super hard games got a little bit less super hard, but they're still super hard.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help the Bruins out hardly at all as far as like the win-loss record.
Yeah.
And then the problem is that when you get to the back half of the schedule, Minnesota looks probably about the same to a little bit harder. Rutgers looks harder. Nebraska looks harder. Iowa might be the only one that looks a little bit easier. Washington looks harder to me. And SC, let's not even talk about that. We're ignoring Voldemort right now. So that's the problem, is that's why Indiana, to me, becomes an absolute must-win game, and Minnesota becomes an absolute must-win game for them to get to 3-3 heading into the back half of their schedule. If they're not 3-3, Mike, I mean, we're looking at, definite, worst case, worst possible timeline scenarios. So it's, let's hope the Bruins improved dramatically, which they might have.
Yeah.
Over their bye week.
Mm-hmm.
We could be singing a much different tune after Saturday if they come out and look good against Indiana, a team that is kind of the belle of the middle tier of the Big Ten ball.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no one's putting Indiana way up there, but they're all like,
they're not cellar dwellers anymore.
But everybody's like, whoa, look at Indiana.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's
I will say this, after last weekend, I would not be surprised if UCLA goes 1-2 in that death march, but that's up to UCLA.
I wouldn't be surprised necessarily, but I wouldn't predict it. Like, I'm still, even when they beat Indiana, I'm still going to think that the Bruins are going to be 2-3 heading into the, hosting Minnesota.
I want to see how they beat Indiana.
Well, I don't even want to count on them beating Indiana yet. I'm just saying, I don't think I could see anything in the game against Indiana that would have me predict them to win at LSU, beat Oregon, or win at Penn State if none of those teams lose any games between now and then.
Yeah.
Now, if they come out and Oregon actually is just dreadful and they get beat by 30 by the Beavers, and they're the sloppy ones, not the sloppy Beavers, then maybe I'm singing a different tune, right? Then we can adjust. But as of right now, just as things stand, the Bruins need to get this win against Indiana.
Yeah.
So with that being said, Mike, let's put a button on this show.
Okay.
Hope you enjoyed our talk with Matthew Weaver. We want to thank him again for joining the show. Hope you enjoyed our initial version of the Big Ten talk.
Mm-hmm.
I sure did. So let's play that going out, and then let's play it one more time. Why not, Mike? You worked so hard on that. You put that together.
I got some inspiration from mostly Nine Inch Nails.
Here it is.
Big 10 talk begins now.
Terrific, Mike. Well, actually, now it ends. Say ends now.
Ends now.
Perfect. All right. So thank you for listening, and follow us on Twitter, and watch us on YouTube, and join us on Patreon and on Substack. But until next time, which is like the next show in your feed, maybe. Go Bruins.
Good evening.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
That was the What's Bruin Show.
Try us tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's got to be in or out, Mom. In or out. Well, I need the door closed.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Dude, brah, we place a ball on the West Coast.
The final word is boob.